welcome to another episode of Mavens Manufacturing, the video broadcast series that showcases the powerful women in manufacturing and engineering from the shop floor all the way to the C-suite. This episode is episode 128, and it is sponsored by ProShop ERP, who are helping machine shops increase their efficiency. So please stand by after the show, and I'll have a brief message from them. But I want to get to our guest today. I'm super excited to have her on. Her name is Nancy Finnegan, and she is the VP of Sales at FactoryEye. Nancy, how are you doing today?
Great, Megan. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Yes, thank you for joining me. So I like to kick off our episodes with you just kind of explaining who you are and give you a chance to provide some background information for us and kind of explain your journey, how you got involved with engineering and manufacturing. I know on LinkedIn you got a really great resume and it looks like you have a lot of experience. So can you share that with us today?
Absolutely. I've been a career salesperson for most of my career, and that took me into supply chain in the 90s.
Okay.
Specifically in supply chain, I worked early on with retailers and CPG companies as they started to explore expanding private label programs. And so that took me into the factories, not only here in the US, but around the world. And when the opportunities came to work directly with the manufacturers, I had a great interest in doing that, and was thrilled when Magic Software decided to get into the business. I joined the team early on.
So can you explain that dynamic too? Because you work for FactoryEye. So what is the relationship between FactoryEye and Magic Software?
Sure. I work, technically, I work for Magic Software.
Yes.
FactoryEye is a division of Magic. Magic Software is a 40-year-old company. They are about 400 million in revenue, publicly traded on the NASDAQ. They were Israeli based, and our US headquarters are in Irvine, California.
Okay.
Magic Software has had two very long-standing hallmark products in the marketplace. One is a low-code, no-code development tool called XPA. And the second one is an integration platform called XPI. XPI has been around for well over 20 years and is used by manufacturers around the world. And we are very, very good at moving data. We have certified partners with, all of the major ERP companies, SAP, JDE, et cetera. And I will say that I've been around that product for a long time. I've never heard of an integration that we couldn't do. And so our manufacturing companies kept coming back to us and saying, we recognize the power of integration between our production floor data and our ERP and our existing systems, but MES isn't really working for us all that well. Can you do more? And so we took a look at the market. We discovered there was a gap, and we architected and built FactoryEye and took it to market.
Awesome. So I do want to stop real quick because we do have comments coming in, and one of them is from Hank Priam, and I don't understand why it's not showing up. There we go. He said, hi, all. Peyton wants me to say it's her birthday today. So Peyton, happy birthday. Thank you for tuning in. His two daughters watch every Friday as much as they can, and he calls them the junior board of directors. So happy birthday, Peyton. Thanks for tuning again. Thanks, Hank, for that.
Happy birthday.
So to get back to FactoryEye, can you tell us more about how that platform is helping manufacturers and what specifically they're doing when it comes to data?
Sure. So for a long time now, probably, over a decade, we've been talking about Industry 4.0 and the need to modernize and all that good stuff. And that's, I think, worked for the Fortune 100 and the Fortune 500, big manufacturers. The gap in the market that we saw was really in what we call the mid-size, which is somewhere between roughly, call it 50 million and a billion. And a lot of those manufacturers many of them, and I'm almost tempted to say most of them, have
Mhm.
data. They're getting PLC data off of their machines. They typically have an ERP system.
Mhm.
There is data out there. However, it is very siloed, and actually being able to use that data efficiently and in a timely manner is a real gap. And so it's one thing to have all this great data, it's another to be able to have it visualized and actionable. And
Mhm.
that's really the gap in the market that we identified. Once we identified that, of course, we embarked on architecting a software solution. And that software solution includes dashboards and reports that you can access on a web browser. It allows you to input and gain output on a tablet. And there's also a mobile component to it so that you can actually receive alerts on your mobile device. Um,
Oh, okay.
Maybe I want to look at, be notified if something is out of tolerance for more than 2 hours. There's
Mhm.
a vibration that's out of tolerance. There's a temperature that's out of tolerance. That's very much how people use the mobile aspect of it. And so that's what we first brought to market. Of course, because of our DNA in integration, we embedded our integration platform, XPI, right into the license of FactoryEye. So not only does
Oh.
a manufacturer get the visualization aspect of it, they also get that integration, which is very powerful.
Mhm.
The third part about it, and this was a learning curve for us, was that it's not just about the visualization, if you will. That actually might be the easy part of it. My developers might disagree with me. um, Very early on, after we went to market, we realized that manufacturers had a real deficit in their data architecture. Many
Okay.
manufacturers that we work with are still using Excel spreadsheets, SQL databases, sometimes Access databases. And although they always tell me that with a little bit of, shame, they're not alone. It's very prevalent in the market. And so
Mhm.
what we actually decided was to embed a modern architecture, basically a data lake architecture within FactoryEye. So when a manufacturer comes to us and is looking to start to better understand their baseline KPIs like OEE and PE, efficiency
Yeah.
essentially, when they want to understand scrap, when they want to, build a foundation to get to things like predictive maintenance and anomaly detection, it's that architecture foundation that comes with FactoryEye that is extremely powerful.
Okay. Now, what about legacy data? Is there like any limitations of Factory Eye? Like, can you help companies kind of organize what they've already collected as well too? And then, are there any limitations on the compatibility of like other systems that they might already have in terms of like CRMs and ERPs?
Not really. Like I said, I've never come into a circumstance at FactoryEye where we haven't been able to integrate. So if there's a way, if there's a will, there's a way on FactoryEye. And there are no limitations, but you bring up a great point. And that was something that we were very aware of when we architected FactoryEye.
Hmm.
Uh, Manufacturers are not known for refreshing their technology very often. It is not unusual at all to see people that, are still using systems from 10 and 20 years ago. And
Hmm.
what we didn't want to do is we did not want to be a rip and replace. And so FactoryEye is architected to be able to leverage and lift that existing environment if it works,
Hmm.
bring that into bring the data into the data lake, and then we take it from there with the integration and the visualization. Um, Not only that, there's another important piece of this, and that's the implementation timeline. If you're doing rip and replace and putting in something, right from the beginning,
Mhm.
well, at least, if you're talking about historically, those can be very long implementation cycles. So our approach is we do a sprint-based approach. Each
Okay.
sprint is under 90 days. And that really helps manufacturers to leverage what they have in place, gain the visualization that they're looking for, and also gain traction in a reasonable amount of time. It's great for momentum. It's great for credibility. It just
Mhm.
overall is a less risky type implementation approach.
Do you have any like case studies that come to mind right away, or any favorite projects that Factory Eyes works on?
Absolutely. One of my favorites is, and let's just take it to baseline. If you say to any manufacturer, right, are you measuring efficiency, OEEP? Most people are going to say, of course we are, right? We're a
Yeah.
manufacturer. That's what we look at. Uptime, downtime, all that good stuff. Once you kind of peel the onion back, a lot of times it comes to fruition that, yes, they're measuring it, but they're not as certain about the data integrity as they should be. And
Okay.
the reason for that is because of the siloed data, because the time that it takes to collate that data and the time that it takes to visualize the data, right? So
Mhm.
I hear it all the time. And I'm talking about this one use case. Yes, they were measuring it, but really by the time they pulled it all together, it was 2 weeks old. By that time, you're already worried about the next problem
Yeah.
out there. And it was interesting. We were in a meeting, there were about 10 people in the room, and we asked the question, does anyone know your scrap number? And all of a sudden, in unison, everyone said 2%. And I thought, wow, that's like a really, like, you usually don't have people agree to a number like that. Well, the reason they agreed to it was because there was a long-standing person who somehow picked 2%. They had been using that number for 10 years, and nobody pushed back on it. They didn't have the data to push back on it. Lo and behold, once they went live with FactoryEye, it turns out that it wasn't 2% at all. In fact, it was in the double digits, right? And we were able to identify that in 90 days.
Wow.
Another, yeah, which is great, right? And today they have a tool that they can make a business decision if something changes in the market. Um, Another interesting story of going live with FactoryEye is that I mentioned before, we do a lot with alarms and alerts, letting you know
Mhm.
if something's out of tolerance. If
Mhm.
if I have a temperature that changes for 20 minutes, maybe that's not the biggest deal in the world. But if it goes on for 3 hours, I want to know what's happening. In this particular instance, we went live with FactoryEye. Someone actually opened a door. Some dust got on a fan. We were live for maybe 3 hours. So we were watching the data very carefully. All of a sudden, we see the vibration go way up. We're thinking to ourselves, oh gosh, the data's wrong. Well, the data wasn't wrong. Someone had opened a door, dust got on a fan.
It
The motor started to vibrate because it didn't have the ventilation. And lo and behold, someone went out, fixed it. If not for that alert, it is very likely that that motor would have needed to be shut down and caused undue downtime.
Wow, that's gotta be cool on your end too, to just be able to pick up results that quickly. So that's really a testament to how accurate your system is. So
It's so
that's a really
cool.
cool story.
It is
So
cool.
then, with all this digital transformation stuff that's happening within manufacturing, you hear a lot about data security. So is in terms of factory, we're starting to see more and more instances of like people being afraid that their systems might get hacked into and then people are going to access their data. So how is Factory Eye protecting businesses from, you know, how are they protecting the data so that you can give that assurance that, what we're collecting, that's not going to like get stolen or taken? What's your thoughts and insights on data security?
Well, I think there are two aspects of it, right? One is
Hmm.
cybersecurity, and there are certainly tools and companies out there that specialize in that. And that's a
Hmm.
very serious problem in today's world.
Yeah.
What we talk about is more around data security.
Hmm.
Many of our manufacturing customers and prospective customers are on premise right now. So they
Hmm.
have their software running within their manufacturing. We have
Hmm.
taken a cloud based approach. And
Okay.
so our data actually sits, today mostly in Microsoft Azure.
Okay.
And that is, a best in class, world renowned cloud technology where, we have passed any and all of the highest security evaluation processes out there. So my perspective is yes, there are times where having on-prem software makes a lot of sense, but I think if
Hmm.
you're talking about data access, data security in today's world, being in the cloud is where it's at.
Gotcha. Well, Nancy, is there anything else that, Factory Eye is helping in terms of, collecting data, or is there any like new trends that you're looking forward to with how companies are, collecting their data, organizing it, and using it for advancing their processes and making them more efficient?
Yeah, I mean, I think my perspective really is that it is a very muddled market out there.
Mm-hmm.
It is not easy for the manufacturer to make a decision, and it is not easy for us to market to the manufacturers because digital transformation it's a broad term. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It might mean automation with robots to some, and it might mean data collection to others. And it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't become cohesive enough. It's not like, if someone says to me, I want to buy an ERP or I want to buy a warehouse management software, right? We know the major players and we know how to move forward. This market is still coming into its own. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why a lot of manufacturers have not pursued it, I hear it all the time. I was at a trade show a few weeks ago, and people were saying to me, we know we should have done this 5 years ago. We just don't know where to start. I don't have the resources. I can't risk taking people off the production floor to get this
Mm-hmm.
started, even though we know we have to, right?
Yeah.
So I think that puts people in a hard situation because where do you start? And, there's always, how do you eat an elephant? How do you boil the ocean? All that good stuff. So I think from my perspective, the trend of doing these sprint-based implementations with lower risk, with a highly configurable solution, with a company like FactoryEye that understands the resource constraints of a manufacturer is
Mm-hmm.
really what you want to be looking for. I always give my free advice to manufacturers, right? Be wary of software vendors who show up and just show you pretty graphs and charts. It's a lot
Right.
more than that. And one of my customers actually said it to me. They said, I could go out and probably stitch this all together, right? I could go on the cloud. I can get a data lake. I can buy an integration tool. We've pulled it all together for the mid-size market. Again, cloud-based technology. Not only that, we monitor the data, and people should not underestimate that as a task. And yeah, we pull that all together, and it makes it feasible after
Mm-hmm.
a decade of talking about Industry 4.0 for a manufacturer to embark on the journey and have success.
So once you help companies like implement your platform, is that it, or do you become a long-term kind of like team member for them? So are you constantly monitoring the data for them, or do you provide some training where they can take over that on their own?
Great question. we're a newer player to the market,
Okay.
and we are very partnership driven. And so I like to say, we never really go away. We're always here. But there are two different types of customers, right? Some
Mhm.
customers are happy to work with us and want to do additional professional services, engagements with us to continue on the sprint-based process. And that's great. I would say we're not a professional services company, but we certainly have subject matter experts and implementation people and partners that can definitely work directly with you. The other side of the coin are those that want to be extremely self-sufficient. And in that
Mhm.
case, there is absolutely the opportunity to be that with FactoryEye. Just as an example, our integration platform, which is embedded, is all drag and drop. So we have customers that use that tool and, we hear from them once and then they go on to do other projects and use it. And we, don't necessarily participate in that at all. And then there's also kind of the hybrid model. And I like to
Mhm.
think that's probably where we're going to sort out. One of our customers who we started with, we replaced their 20-year-old system in 2022, 2023. We're now actually doing machine learning with them, leveraging the FactoryEye data lake and doing anomaly detection, predictive maintenance, things like that. And we're working very closely with them on that to write to write the models, to roll it out, and also gain the insights. And that's actually a point I just want to make. One thing I think we do really well, it's not
Mhm.
just about visualization. You also have to have the resources and the understanding and the right visualizations to make sense of the data, to make use of
Yeah.
the data. And that's a different way, right? I mean, you're used to looking at data from a month ago, and now all of a sudden you're looking at data real time. The benefit, of course, is you can actually do something about it,
Right.
right?
And it's
We have X amount of customer orders that we need to deliver. We're not on target to produce those. Usually you only know about that when someone goes, oh, we don't have enough to ship. Now you can actually look at the trend and say, okay, what are we going to do about it? And that's a different mindset. And we do work with our customers so that they understand, how they're going to act differently once they go live with FactoryEye.
awesome. Well, Nancy, if you had one ask for our audience today, what would your ask be?
I would say it's twofold. Um, be willing to well, one is don't go it alone.
Right.
It
It's too
is
big.
it is a hard thing to do. And if you're going to try and piecemeal this all together, there are a lot of aspects of it that are just, very difficult.
Mhm.
The other thing I would just say is be willing to accept that you can do a crawl, walk, run approach and be successful. The market is littered with failed pilots out there. And I accept that that's happened over the last 5 years. And I see it all the time. But I think FactoryEye has brought really I'm going to use the word revolutionary way for
Mhm.
mid-sized manufacturers to be successful, to grow their business, to ensure that they can make the business decisions that they need to make. And, be open to the art of the possible. I think we're at a real turning point for manufacturing in the United States.
I really like that. Be open to the art of what's possible. I think that's really good advice. Well, for anyone who has any more questions about FactoryEye and the things that you can help them with within their own businesses, are you going to be at any upcoming trade shows? How can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Well, we're very much on the trade show circuit. You could probably tell from my voice. I've already been to one this week. So this is probably the last time I'll be talking this much until Monday. You can certainly reach us at factoryeye.co. We're readily Googleable on the internet. We have a web page. My name is Nancy Finnegan. I'm obviously on LinkedIn. My phone number's there. So there are many, many ways to get in touch.
Excellent. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to come speak with us on Mavens of Manufacturing and give us more insight on what FactoryEye is doing to help companies with all of their data. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone who was tuning in today. We do have one last comment that I want to pull up. Joni was like, I feel that, Nancy. I'm assuming she's talking about the trade shows because Joni does a lot with trade show events coordination, and she's wonderful. So reach out to her if you don't know her. Thank you, Joni, for commenting. For anyone, again, who's tuning in, be sure to stay put for the next 50 seconds because I do have a message from our sponsor, Pro Shop. Oh, go ahead,
One
Nancy.
more thing. We'll be at South Tech in Greensville, South Carolina. My marketing team is texting me going, make sure you get that in. So South Tech in Greensville, South Carolina coming up soon.
Awesome. And then Joni said, good talk. And yeah, so hopefully she'll be there as well too. So again, thank you, Nancy. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned for a quick message from our sponsor. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks again. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Megan. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Growing your manufacturing business can be a challenge. Using multiple disconnected and underperforming systems to do so only adds insult to injury. ProShop ERP understands this frustration. They've been in your shoes and have spent the last 20 years developing and refining a solution that places shop owners in control of their business operations and growth. ProShop ERP equips manufacturers with the basis to achieve sustainable growth by pulling the critical details of how your business runs into one central location. When you have clear and easy access to the information you need the most, you achieve sustainable growth. Are you ready to take the next step and centralize your data? Head to ProShopERP.com/call. That's ProShopERP.com/call.